Ronda Rousey.
You son of a bitch.
Now there's a name I haven't heard in a while. Happily, might I add. Now this might be shocking to hear, but I am not a Ronda Rousey fan. I've never been a Ronda Rousey fan, and I probably never will be. Her so-called achievements are extremely overrated and marred by the most blatant favoritism the sport of mixed martial arts has ever seen. She was extremely overhyped, limited in ability, and benefited from competition that was weaker than two 15-year-olds with broccoli haircuts, shadow boxing at your local LA Fitness. And yet during her reign, she was heralded as one of the greatest athletes to ever step foot into any sport. Michael Phelps with his 23 Olympic gold medals, trash, garbage, just a do-nothing bitch compared to the great rowdy Ronda Rousey. I'm not joking, a lot of people really felt that way in 2015. Joe Rogan literally cried for her.
That was an intense moment. When you walked around the cage after you knocked her out, it was one of, like, I've seen guys win before, I've seen women win before, I've seen people win before, but I never saw anybody soak it all in the way you did when you walked around. When she face planted, you said, "Don't cry," and then you walked around like you strutted around the octagon. Yeah. You like strutted and looked around at all those people. You took it all in. You looked around. I was like, wow, this is a crazy moment.
I never did. That was the first time
And you know, and knowing you as long as I've had, and having daughters, and it was so emotional for me. That was the closest I've ever come to crying while I was I might cry now when I was interviewing somebody. It's because it was so intense, and it was also like I really knew that I was like seeing history.
And if you're wondering who this absolutely amazing and destructive Brazilian warrior was that Ronda Rousey beat to get such an intense reaction out of Joe, it was Bethe Correia. You know, the lady that was a literal accountant like 6 months prior to fighting her. And if you're wondering if she was just an accountant to somehow finance her athletic career, no, she was not. She was about as athletic as the least athletic, I don't know, corpse. Like rigor mortis setting in would be more explosive than anything Bethe Correia has ever done. And that was basically the state of the whole women's division back then. It just looked like they collected the stunt doubles from the cast of Orange is the New Black and just let it rip. They were just absolutely terrible, horrific, the worst in the history of anything ever, the world, the universe. I think like a Zumba coach could have came in and realistically wrecked a lot of these girls. But when Ronda was beating them, people were acting like she was the god of war or something. I just remember everything being about Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor back then, but at least Conor beat Jose Aldo to win his title, who was on a decade-long winning streak back then. Ronda beat Miesha Tate, who had fought nobody, just like Ronda, and was already beaten by Ronda in Strikeforce. So I was very happy, you could even say ecstatic, when Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes alley-ooped her right out of the UFC. And it was doubly as sweet to hear her defective Vizio TV flea market salesman coach yelling head movement as she was getting wrecked. Because this was a person that couldn't box her way out of a wet paper bag that they put on the cover of Ring magazine. That's how insane her hype was at the time. And it was the arrogance that really got me. There wasn't even a second of consideration, not even a moment of thought that maybe, just maybe, these people are blowing smoke up your ass.
Hey, Ronda, do you think you could beat Holly Holm without using your grappling?
Yeah. I think I could beat every girl in my division with one hand, but...
Like, no, she really was that amazing. She could beat professional boxers, she could beat men, she could fly, fuck it, why not? She said that under the right circumstances, she could beat Cain Velasquez. And nobody would question it. I felt like I was going insane because I was watching somebody with some decent throws and submissions, but otherwise extremely sloppy everywhere else, but people were acting like it was the next coming of Anderson Silva, or maybe even better, like Anderson Silva and John Jones combined. But in reality, she was like a worse Caro Parisian. I remember when she was coming back to fight Amanda Nunes, who was the champ, all of the promos were focused on Ronda Rousey. Like, they got her little sister to play her when she was younger, and it was all about her story and how great she was, and this was her big comeback. I mean, it was unreal. Never seen anything like it, and I mean this in the worst possible way imaginable, and thankfully probably never will again. But apparently all of this undeserved praise was just not enough for Ronda. There was absolutely no self-reflection done in her years away from the sport, just anger bubbling up at the people who were gassing her up in the first place, the fans.
Couldn't even tell them why.
I couldn't because, well, first I felt like I had to come back for another fight because I felt like I owed it to the fans, right? And everyone that had believed in me. Maybe I needed to give them an example of overcoming adversity. But it was to the point where the next fight, the first time I got touched, I was out on my feet. And it was so hard because I'd never been faster, never been stronger, never had a better grasp of the game. I'd never been so much better than everybody else. But your brain doesn't callous. It doesn't heal back stronger after a break. It's just an inevitable decline, and I just couldn't keep fighting at a level anymore. I'd taken punishment and taking punishment until I couldn't take it anymore. And then when I got to the point that I couldn't take it anymore, then I was like vilified as like, oh, she was all hype and she was just lucky, and she, and people making all these judgments about me in a fight where I was literally, my first loss, I was not like, my mouth guard was bad. I literally came into that fight concussed from slipping down some stairs already after all of these years of, concussions. And then I had absolutely terrible weight cut, which, that means you have less fluid in your brain to protect it. And I was out on my feet for the entire fight. I was just trying to make it look like I wasn't hurt, but I wasn't there cognitively. I couldn't think as fast. I couldn't judge distance. And just from that one fight, everybody felt like, oh, she's a fraud.
Now, from what I recall, Ronda bull rushed Holly like she was Goldberg or something, and Holly simply kickboxed her ears off. I don't see where concussions come into play here. And it's not like she's the only fighter with concussions ever. I'm sure Holly had more than a few herself, and on top of that was a huge underdog fighting the company star. I remember her saying that the pressure was so overwhelming and nerve-wracking for her that she would leave practice to go and bawl her eyes out in her car on a regular basis. She was up against much more insurmountable odds than Ronda ever was, and that victory was the biggest moment in her career. But here's Ronda trying to snatch it away from her by retroactively making excuses.
And I know that like I'm the greatest fighter that has ever lived, but when it got to a point where I'd just taken so much neurological damage that I couldn't take it anymore, suddenly everything that I accomplished meant nothing.
No, people simply put your accomplishments into perspective. You were a marketing hype job that was a decent-ish fighter that kickstarted the women's division in the UFC. What people realize that you're not is exactly what you just said that you are, the greatest fighter of all time. Greatest fighter of all time based on what exactly? What did you do? Who did you beat? You fought absolutely nobody, and when they accidentally bumped you up in competition just a little bit, you got exposed and smoked. And it's not like you took these losses on the chin like a true warrior or something. You got butthurt and ran away to pro wrestling immediately.
And so then after that second fight, and I saw how all these people that I was coming back to fight for had suddenly turned against me, all of my appreciation for them turned into resentment.
Yeah, I guess fighting isn't so easy when you're not getting fed can after can and everyone isn't just kissing your ass for absolutely no reason. Welcome to being literally everyone else on the roster.
And I just didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore. I didn't want to do anything for them anymore because I gave them everything that I had, and they hated me for not being able to give them more.
How about everything that you were given? The fame, the money, the notoriety, endless opportunities, the buying into your own delusions of grandeur. You were walking around for years like people are supposed to pass out when they touch your hand or something. I mean, cut it out. Yeah, so I don't like Ronda Rousey very much. I don't know if you guys noticed or not. If you have some thoughts of your own, leave your comments down below. Like, dislike, subscribe, and I will see you soon.